Thank you everybody for joining. This is the first Brilliant Directories Marketplace webinar. And we just want to say thank you very much for joining us. We're looking forward to having many more webinars going over lots of fun and good stuff here in the Brilliant Directories platform. My name is Matthew Brooks. I am one of the co-founders of Brilliant Directories. I'm also the CTO. And joining me today is Patrick Brunel. Patrick is our marketplace ambassador, and he's also the managing partner of ProjectPat.io. All right, so we're now going to move on to our main segment here, which is our BD Deep Dive. And today we're going to be talking about mastering widgets. So before we get started, let's talk about what is a widget. A widget is a container of code that separates out your PHP and HTML and your CSS and your JavaScript. Now, if you've worked with other platforms like WordPress or Joomla, many platforms have their own versions of the widget systems. In our version, we do things a little bit different. In our version, you can put PHP, CSS, HTML, or MySQL queries in any of the boxes that are shown. So I'll just give you a quick example here. I'm going to go into our admin within the Brilliant Directories system here, and I'll go here to one of my widgets. And what you can do is, as you can see here, I've got some PHP mixed with some HTML. Now, what's really great about the Brilliant Directory system that's kind of separate from other softwares is you can actually put PHP not just in your HTML box, but you can also put PHP here in your CSS box. You can also put it here in your JavaScript box. This will give you maximum functionality and flexibility to write if statements or for loops or different types of things that you want to customize on a per page or per variable basis. And also, in addition to that, whenever you're customizing a widget, we have what's called a diff checker. So what that means, what I'll do is just go to our website, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Show Widgets on the left side of our admin bar. This is going to show me all of the widgets. And if I want, I can go ahead and customize a widget here. And when I click on it, what I'm going to see is that it's just a default widget. Now, if I want to go ahead and make changes to this code, I go under Actions and I go under Customize. And in order for me to make a change to this, I have to add some content that's new. And the reason why we do that is to make sure that any code that you're having is new and customized code, not just the same widget that's repeated over again and customized into your website. So now that I've gone ahead and saved this, when I go ahead and click on Edit, now that I can see it here in my customized widgets, I can see a diff checker here. And what this is going to show me is any changes that I've made to the code compared to the default widget. This is a really great way to see if there's any updates to the Brilliant Directories default widget or anything that could be wrong that's affecting your custom widget from showing up correctly on the website. So when we're referencing a widget, there's only two ways that you can reference a widget in the Brilliant Directory software, and you can use these references in content pages and forms and menus and in other widgets. So the two ways you can do it is our HTML version, which is really our recommended version because this can be used in more places, or you can use our PHP version, which can only be used in other widgets. So in order for me to do that, what I'll do is I'll go to one of our content pages here, and I'm going to find a page that I've already created here, which is called Developer Webinar. And as you can see here, I've called this widget here. So now if I go ahead and load this page, I'm going to see my code here. And if I click on Show Widgets, I should be able to see the name of the widget here. And here it is here. Now, we might forget what the name of the widget is. And so in order to find out, sometimes we forget, sometimes I'll make a name of a widget and I'll be like, what's the name of that widget? So to find out and make it easier for you to reference those widgets, what you can do is whenever you're in the widget manager, and you click on Edit for your widget. At the bottom of the page, there's your reference code. So you can use the widget reference, which is the HTML version, or you can use the PHP version, which really only can be called in other widgets. All right, so here's a good question. Where does the widget code print? Now, this is a really important concept to understand in the Brilliant Directories platform. The way that we print code is in two different places. Our CSS and our HTML get printed together, and our JavaScript gets printed at the end of the page after all the HTML is printed. Now, I'm going to show you an example of that here in the widgets in the widget system. So I'm going to open up one of our widgets, our test widget that I've created. That's called Webinar Developer Web Widget. And so as you can see here, I've got my code. And I've got my CSS and I've got my JavaScript, and we're going to see where this is being called. So what I did here with the widgets is I added some extra code for us to kind of see, and you guys can get a better sense about how this works. What I did is I added an if statement. Sometimes we want to show specific code based on a variable that we are calling in our address bar. So in order to do that, I use the get variable. And with the get variable, I can add a variable that I want to use in order to show this code. So I'm doing that here for the CSS, and I'm doing that here for the JavaScript. So if I add that variable now, it is show alert equals 1. It should show me a JavaScript alert that's going to come up here. And so now when I go and I look at the code here, what I can do is I can just search to see where this code is being printed. So I'm going to look for this word, welcome to the webinar. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back to my view source, and I love to, I'm a code guy, so if you're like me and you really want to get into the code, a great way to look at that is to view the source. And I'm going to go and click Control F on my keyboard and then Control V to paste. And that's going to show me exactly where this code is being printed. So as you can see here, what we're doing is in the Brilliant Directory software, we always print the CSS before we print the HTML code. And the reason why we do that is we want the CSS to render before your HTML gets rendered. This makes sure that whenever the page is rendered, it shows all of your styles when the page is being rendered. If we show the CSS afterwards on a slow browser or on a slow internet connection, you're going to see that the web page is going to change after it's loaded because the CSS hasn't been loaded. So it's always best to load your CSS before your HTML code. So we've got our CSS and we've got our HTML. They show up together. Now I'm now going to do another search, and I'm going to look for our JavaScript, which is hello. And when I look for that, you're going to see it now. It's below at the bottom of the page. And what we do with the Brilliant Directory software is all of the JavaScript that you put in your various widgets, they all get combined together and they load up at the bottom of the website. And the reason why we do that is so all your JavaScript is in one place. It's not all over the place with different widgets. This is a good way to make sure that all your JavaScript gets loaded together. And if you're having different includes for JavaScript, all of your code is going to load below that. Now, you might say, I want this to load with my code, and you can do that. See, that's the great thing about the Brilliant Directory software is I can go ahead and copy my JavaScript where I would normally put here that shows up at the bottom, and now I can copy that here into the HTML and show it right here. I can also do the same thing with the CSS, and I can move all this code here and put this. Now if I move this here, I'll have to add a style code because this is a CSS. But I can show all of my CSS, my JavaScript, and my HTML in one box. And really that's the brilliant part of the software and the widget system is you can use it how you see fit. The best way to really understand the software is to play with it yourself, figure it out. What I can tell you is that all the code that you put in here will execute. You just really need to figure out the way that you want to implement it and make it work the best to fit your specific needs.
That's great, Matt. And just a quick question. When would I use the CSS rules for a widget rather than using it throughout the website?
Pat, that is a great question, and thank you for asking. The way you can do that is instead of putting all your code that maybe you want to show up all over the website in a specific widget, you can go over to the settings and to the design settings. And under your custom CSS and head, which is the last tab here. You can put your custom CSS and your custom head here. You can also put PHP into this as well, and this will show up at the top of your website. So if you want specific CSS or HTML elements or head elements to show up on every page, you can add them here without having to call them in a specific widget.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so how can you tell if a widget is customized? Well, we went over that just a little bit, but we're going to do it again. So if I'm in the admin and I want to see if one of my widgets is customized, I can go ahead and click on Visit Website. When you click on Visit Website from within the admin, it's going to take you into the developer mode. When you're in the developer mode, it's going to give you this nice sidebar that's on the left. It's your admin bar. And from here, you have various options. The one that we're going to go into today is Show Widgets. From here, you're going to be able to see all of the various widgets that load up on the web page. Now, any widget that I see that's red, those are master widgets. Those are widgets that are default widgets that are built into the system. And any widgets that are green, those are your customized widgets that you've customized on your website. Now, when you click on the name of a widget, any widget, it's going to take you right into the admin. And you'll know it's customized again if you don't see your customized widget here. So as you can see, I have the Bootstrap theme header right. And the reason why I'm also seeing the Bootstrap theme header is because this widget, the header right, is referenced within the Bootstrap theme header. So this is a great way if I want to see, which widget is actually referencing the one that I want to call. Now, of course, if I click on my Bootstrap header left, that one has been customized. So now I can see the customized version, and I can also see the default version of the widget as well. Now, here's a really great feature to use. Sometimes within the software, you want to see what you want to disable some of your widgets to make sure or see if maybe some new code that's been added by Brilliant Directories is working properly, or there's some new features that you want to take advantage of, but you don't want to lose all the work that you've already done. So the way that you can go ahead and do that is you can simply just hit disable. And when you hit disable, what it will essentially do is it's going to disable your widget. Now, in the next slide, I'm going to show you exactly how that happens in the database so you can see what exactly we're doing behind the scenes here. So we've gone over how customized widgets work. Again, customized widgets, when you view the website, will always show in green, and any master widget will always show in red. You can always click on that widget, and then you can go ahead and edit that widget. So now a master widget, now what you're asking is, what is a master widget? A master widget lives in our default repository. So when we went ahead and started building this software many years ago, we were running hundreds of our own directory websites. And what we realized when we were running those directory websites is we wanted to have the same code run for all these individual websites, but we knew that if we were to make one update, then we would have to update all of the individual websites, and that's a lot of work. So if anyone has worked on a specific piece of software and you've had to go into FTP, upload that same code or that change to all the various websites and test it, that's a lot of work. So the idea of the default widgets were that we could have one set of master widgets that we can always keep up to date as we're making changes or improvements to overall functionality of the software. Now, if we want to make, in some cases, we want to change a style, we want to add some extra code, we want to make something different for one specific website. That's the idea of customizing a widget. This way you can take the default functionality, you can add to it, you can change it, or you can make it work however you want. And that way it's only changing that one piece of the code. You don't have to worry about it changing everything, or your whole big file of all this different HTML code having to be different now because you had to change one specific thing. So now, a master widget can only be customized on your website, and a custom widget protects your code from being, from software updates being pushed. So if you want something to be specific and you don't want any changes to be made from the Brilliant Directories platform, you can also customize your widgets, and that will keep them safe without any future updates being happening to them. So just to give you an idea about how we're actually doing this in the software, I'm going to go ahead and go to our developer section and go to MySQL database. And when I'm in the database, now all the data that you're looking at on the website, it's all database driven. So if you haven't had a chance to explore how the database works, you can always go to the MySQL database. You can click on the directory here and you can see all the different tables and get a better interaction for how things work. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the data widgets. This is where all the widgets are stored. So as you can see, what we've done is we've made this widget disabled. Well, really what we've done is if we look at the database, we've just added the word disable to it. So when the system is referencing this widget, it's going to reference now the default version because we've changed our name. So this is really good feature of the software if you want to just see if something's working, or if you want to make multiple versions of your Bootstrap header left or any widget, you can do that. Keep them disabled, and then when you want to reuse them or check them, you can go ahead and just enable them again. Now, if you have a lot of widgets, you can also click on the bulk actions here, and you can bulk action with delete, enable, and disabled.
Now, one of the things I really love about this platform, the way you set it up, is that oftentimes we're customizing widgets, obviously, in what we do the day-to-day, and obviously disabling a widget is much more preferable than deleting the widget. Sometimes something breaks. Sometimes I'll go in and I'll try to customize the profile overview tab, which is one of the widgets we customize the most on the Brilliant Directories platform, to really change the layout and structure of a profile page. There's a lot that goes into that widget. So sometimes I do a little change myself and I'll break the layout of the profile page. But I put a lot of work into that code. So in the past, I would delete the widget just because I don't want the customer to see their profile page is broken, obviously. But now disabling it, it allows my code to get stored. I disable it, and instantly, the magic of the software, of course, is that master widget code, the code that is accurate and is intact, is now the widget that gets called on that. So instantly, the profile pages start appearing as they should again. So whenever I customize a widget, I save it, I go to the page that is impacted, I just make sure everything's still working like it should, to confirm that I did the code right. If for any reason, and it happens, if for any reason I break it, I just go into the widget library, I disable that widget. Something else that's really helpful is sometimes my customers will report a bug. So I'll do one of two things. One, if they report a bug on a specific page, I'll go to that specific page and I'll show widgets on the page, and I'll identify which widgets are in green. And 95% of the time, the problem of the bug is located in one of those green widgets. If it's a site-wide issue, then what I'll do is I'll disable all the widgets, like Matt showed. It just takes a second. Then I'll refresh the cache, because it takes a while for that to get saved. So refresh the cache in the admin. Maybe Matt in a second will show you where to do that. And then I go visit the website. I see if the bug is still there. If the bug is still there, then I'll report that to Brilliant Directories. If the bug isn't there, then I've identified it's something in one of my custom widgets, and then I can start making educated guess in terms of where that widget is. And then obviously look into the BD updates and see if there's any updates that got pushed that I can transfer the code over. Once you get used to that process, it doesn't take us more than 5 to 10 minutes to resolve any bugs that come up with our customers. It's just a matter of knowing what steps to take. And once you have that process down pat, it's really quick and easy to resolve.
Thank you, Pat, for that. So what Pat was talking about the refresh cache, which is a really good point, and I'm glad that you brought that up, is sometimes when we're making updates to our widgets, we're not seeing the changes immediately on the website. That happens because your site has a cache system that's built in. So it could be that sometimes you'll make a change to a widget, then you go to the website and you're not seeing that change immediately. As you saw, I just went ahead and disabled a widget and re-enabled it. If for whatever reason you're not seeing those changes immediately, on the left side you've got a refresh cache button. You can also do that within the admin here under developers and refresh cache. And what that will do is it will refresh your cache immediately. So any changes that you've made to your customized widgets, you should start seeing them immediately on your website. All right, so now we're going to get to our bonus tip. When you want to make a custom widget within the software. It's really important sometimes not to be customizing some of our bigger widgets. A lot of the times we see that the biggest mistake that some people make when they're using the software is that they'll go ahead into the system and they'll choose a widget like the Bootstrap theme head framework, which is our biggest widget that kind of controls the whole page, just to make one change. Really what we recommend you do, if you're going to make one small change, let's say to a widget, I'll go ahead and take this Bootstrap theme header and I'll go ahead and customize this. Any code that you want to add to this widget, we always recommend that you just make a new widget with your custom code here. So I'll call this my custom widget. And any custom code that you want to put it into this widget. And the reason why we're doing this is when I hit save, it's going to save my custom widget. But now when Brilliant Directories, because we're constantly making improvements, we're making upgrades to the software based on all the feedback that we get from all the community and people. And so a lot of the times you'll want to take advantage of that, and you'll have to go in there and update some of that code. So now if I go and click on edit with this widget, and I go to my diff checker, I can see that the only thing that's changed is my custom widget. So if Brilliant Directories has made some updates to this widget, I'm going to see that change here. And what I can usually do is just take my one widget that I have in place here. I can copy this and go back to the widget manager, disable my widget, and then recustomize the master widget and just copy my widget in there. This way, if you've added custom code, you don't need to be figuring out where you added custom code, or there's custom code that now conflicts with your code because you've kept your code in one widget that you can then reuse wherever you want to use. So that's one big tip, and I'm going to give you one other big tip today as well. As we discussed before, when we're in the widget manager, a lot of the times, and this was asked to me the other day, so I wanted to make sure I brought this up in the webinar today. A lot of the times when we're calling widgets and widgets, there's a variable that you want to call into your widget, but you don't know how to because it's outside of this widget. So what you can do is, if there's a name of a variable that you want to be called within this widget, you can use the global variable. And if you put global with the name of your variable, that now can be used within the code. So if you're finding yourself with a variable that is within another widget and you can't get it into your widget, just use the global and globalize it. And then now you can use this variable within your widgets here.
That's an amazing tip. Thanks, Matt.
All right, so we've gone over pretty much everything that we could in deep diving into the widgets. Just to recap on what we talked about, within the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript widget, you can put PHP, HTML, and CSS. You can put all that in here. We really recommend that you separate out your code. This makes your life easier. It makes your code cleaner. But sometimes we want JavaScript to be in HTML, and we want HTML to be in JavaScript, and that's one of the great things about the platform is you can really move around the code. And the best way to learn it is to figure it out. So what we always say is, go ahead and play with it, add stuff around, and see where it shows up on your website, but it will execute properly. You just have to figure out the way that you want to do it. And with that, we'll go ahead and close the master deep dive. I want to say thank you very much to everyone who's attended, and we hope that everyone has a brilliant day. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.